Lin Li was a young man who lived in Shanghai, China. One day his archaeologist father gave Li a mysterious sword and left with his brother, Feng, for Qianfengde, never to be seen again. 1 year later, he received a mysterious package that contained a puzzle box. After solving the puzzle, which revealed a red orb, Li was attacked by the delivery man, who transformed into a demon but was saved when the sword moved on its own to attack the demon and by the arrival of Ji Xuangshuang. When Li demanded answers, Xuangshuang stabbed him with the sword, which gave him a vision of the Huaxia defeating Qi Yu in 3000 BC and revealed that the sword was the sword of Fu Shi. Xuangshuang revealed that Xi and Li were the descendants of Nuwa and Fu Shi, respectively, and that the sword and Qi Yu's orb had been removed from their resting place, allowing the seals containing Qi Yu to weaken and unleashing his demon army. Believing Li to be too incompetent to fight Qi Yu, Xuangshuang took the orb from him. Li tried to chase after her but was attacked by Baron Mordo, who wanted the sword for himself. Li was rescued by Doctor Strange, who drove Mordo away. After Li explained what the sword was and the threat of Qi Yu, Strange offered to take the sword for safekeeping but relented when Li told him of his family duty and that it was the only clue to finding his father. Strange reminded Li that he needed to work with allies and used his magic to send him to Xuangshuang's location. Li and Xuangshuang were able to defeat the remaining demons in the area, and Xuangshuang was contacted by her grandmother, who ordered her to return to the Nuwa estate in Gansu with Li and the sword. Unable to take a flight due to the sword failing security checks at the airport and Xuangshuang's magic not being strong enough to transport them, Li recruited his roommate Ah Cheng to drive them as he had a driver's license. When they met Cheng in downtown Shanghai, the sword moved on its own and pointed out Feng from a crowd. By the time Xuangshuang and Cheng caught up with Li, Feng disappeared. Li and his friends helped Ji Shangyun and the Nuwa clan defend the Nuwa mansion when it was attacked by Qi Yu's demons. Afterwards, Shangyun took Li and Xuangshuang to the tomb containing Qi Yu's body and used her magic to show memories of Qi Yu's sealing and release, as well as the last moments of Li's father before his disappearance. Li was told by Shangyun that he needed to start his training under Xuangshuang. Sometime after his training, Li took on the name Sword Master and embarked on his quest to find his family and fight Qi Yu's demons. Li later joined the new Agents of Atlas during the War of the Realms. He stayed with the team while continuing to look for his family. While looking for his father, Li encountered his Atlas teammate Shang-Chi in Flushing, who took Li under his wing. Sword Master and Shang-Chi were confronted by Ares, who demanded Lin Li's sword of Fu Shi to confront the kidnapper of his son Ismenios, who Ares believed was another god. Coming to a truce, the three were able to track Ismenios to a temple in Madripoor, where they confronted his kidnapper, the mother goddess of Madripoor Davi Naka. Naka explained that she imprisoned Ismenios for his protection after the young dragon was caught stealing from Atlantis' treasure hoard during the absence of its sea serpent guardian. Despite Naka's attempt to placate the kingdom, King Namor was still outraged over the missing dragon. During Sword Master and Shang-Chi's training, they were reunited with the new Agents of Atlas when Flushing and other Asian communities in every major city were merged into the portal city of Pan by tech mogul Mike Nguyen. Despite their suspicions of Nguyen and his hired mercenary, Isaac Ikeda, the protector of Pan, the new Agents of Atlas agreed to protect the city after it was besieged by wyverns and sea serpents. It was later revealed that Atlantis Dragon had been captured by the Big Nguyen Company, who had been harvesting her scales to power Pan's portals. Upon this discovery, an enraged Namor launched an invasion of Pan to reclaim his stolen dragon. Swordmaster and the other new Agents of Atlas were summoned by Brawn during his confrontation with Namor, who warned the group to return Atlantis Dragon in a day or else face the wrath of Atlantis before retreating. Swordmaster and the other new agents were subsequently introduced to the original Agents of Atlas by Wu. When Wu sent Namora, Venus, Arrow, and Wave to Atlantis for a diplomatic mission, Brawn discreetly ordered Shang-Chi and Swordmaster to spy on Namora, due to her familial ties with Namor. The dragon was eventually released from captivity, but upon arriving home, she unexpectedly went berserk and attacked the underwater kingdom. Witnessing the destruction caused by the dragon, Shang-Chi and Swordmaster relayed to Amadeus that Atlantis scientists discovered an implant embedded in the dragon's scales to be the source of her behavior and that Namor believed Amadeus to be behind the sabotage, prompting the king to resume his attack on Pan. When Amadeus was forcibly transformed into the Hulk and put under Nguyen's control with Serena Tech in a last-ditch effort to destroy Atlantis, Swordmaster helped Shang-Chi remove the device from Amadeus, freeing him from Nguyen's control and reverting him back into Brawn. During the invasion of the symbiote god Null on Earth, Lin Li learned that symbiote dragons were attacking Shanghai and traveled there, assuming they were minions of Qi Yu. Upon learning from his Atlas teammate Arrow that the symbiote dragons were servants of a different dark god, Null, Li was disappointed and stubbornly refused to assist in repelling the invasion, arguing that the sword of Fu Shi had a proud will of its own and was meant to be wielded against Qi Yu alone. Angered by the boy's arrogance and hubris, the sword of Fu Shi left him for Dane Whitman, the Black Knight, who had been stranded in Shanghai after a symbiote dragon attack. Attacked by a symbiote dragon, the Black Knight lapsed into a berserk state, the sword of Fu Shi belatedly realizing he wasn't a noble warrior and attempting to return to lead. Lin and Dane's struggle over the blade was interrupted when the symbiote dragon latched onto them with tendrils to mentally connect them to Null. The sword of Fu Shi set Dane's hand ablaze with divine flames to force him to relinquish it before returning to Li. With Null desiring to claim both the ebony blade and the sword of Fu Shi for himself, Li wielded the divine sword alongside Arrow and the Black Knight in order to vanquish Null's avatar. When the death of Doctor Strange prompted legions of demons to invade parts of the world, Swordmaster and Wave drove off an invasion in Cebu. Afterwards, Swordmaster was sent to Seoul by Wu to assist his teammate White Fox with taking down a demonic Kumiho that had been terrorizing the South Korean countryside. While fighting the Kumiho, the sword of Fu Shi was destroyed by a bite from the beast's jaws. When Ashok wondered how that was possible, the demon claimed that the sword recognized how weak he was and proceeded to throw him into a ravine. Despite the best efforts of the agents of Atlas and Tiger Division, Lee was unable to be found, with only a shard of his sword recovered by White Fox. An unconscious and gravely wounded Lin Li was washed ashore outside Kowloon, just as Shoulao hatched from his egg. The dragon bestowed his chi onto Li, saving his life and granting him the power and title of the Iron Fist. Li was saved by Mei Min, who took him home to her family. With several of the sword's shards embedded in his hands, Li aspired to recover the remaining shards and reforge the sword to prevent Chi Yu from escaping his seal. Several months later, Li tracked down a large piece of the sword in a Chinese antique shop in Flushing, where he met his predecessor Danny Rand, who helped him recover the piece from several of Chiyo's minions. Danny attempted to ask Li about his background, but Li brushed him off and fled through a portal to Kowloon in the subway. Li continued hunting down the sword's pieces while fighting Chiyo's forces across the world, with Min joining him on several occasions. After returning from an excursion in Shanghai, Li was provoked into a fight with Yang Yi but was stopped and reprimanded by Sparrow Ut. Li later confessed to Min that he felt unworthy of being the Iron Fist as he had not gone through the traditional steps required. But Min cheered him up by telling him the story of Wu Wei Osher. An Iron Fist similar to Li. Sparrow also offered some encouragement to Li and took him under her wing to help him overcome his handicap. One day during his training, the shards in his skin started radiating energy and left Li in excruciating pain, making him realize that the seal in Chiyo's first tomb had been destroyed. If you like this, do consider subscribing for more content.